Captain Marcus Chen felt the cold metal chains around his wrists as the alien guards pushed him through the massive doors of Baron Vexithari's throne room. The Zephyrian palace was built to intimidate, with soaring ceilings that stretched impossibly, high in walls covered in trophies from conquered worlds. Marcus had seen many alien species during his years in the human military, but the Zephyrians still struck him as particularly unsettling with their pale blue skin, 4 arms, and eyes that seemed to glow with inner light. The Baron sat on a throne, made from what looked like crystallized starlight, his elaborate robes flowing around him like liquid mercury. He was ancient even by Zephyrian standards, his skin marked with the ritual scars that showed his victories in battle. Around the throne room, dozens of Zephyrian nobles watched with eager anticipation, their conversations creating a low hum that echoed off the walls. "Ah, the human captain," Baron Vexithari's voice boomed across the chamber. "I have heard much about your species' latest defeat. Tell me, Captain Chen, how does it feel to be so thoroughly outmatched?" Marcus kept his expression neutral. He had been captured during a border skirmish when his ship's engines failed at the worst possible moment. His crew had escaped, but he had stayed behind to buy them time. Now he faced whatever punishment this alien noble had in mind. "I did my duty," Marcus replied simply. The Baron laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Duty? Such a quaint concept. In Zephyrian culture, we understand that the strong take what they want, and the weak suffer what they must. Which brings me to why you're here." The Baron gestured with one of his 4 hands, and a side door opened. Marcus turned to see another Zephyrian being wheeled into the room, but this one was different. Younger, with skin that had a slight golden tint, and in a wheelchair. The young Zephyrian woman held herself with dignity despite the whispers and barely hidden disgust from the other nobles. Her eyes met Marcus's briefly, and he saw intelligence there and something else, a carefully hidden pain that had nothing to do with her physical condition. "Behold my daughter Zara Lynn," the Baron announced, his voice dripping with mock sadness. "Once she was to be my greatest achievement, beautiful, brilliant, and destined for greatness. Then came her accident." The way he said accident made it clear to Marcus that it had been anything but accidental. A training exercise gone wrong, the Baron continued, clearly enjoying the story. A beam fell, crushing her spine. In our culture, Captain Physical, weakness reflects spiritual corruption. She is worse than dead. She is an embarrassment. Marcus felt his jaw clench. He had served alongside soldiers who had been injured in battle, and their courage had never been diminished by their wounds. "For years I have sought a fitting punishment for this burden she has become," the Baron said, rising from his throne. "And then I realized, what better fate than to give her to a human? Your species is known for taking in strays, are you not?" The nobles around the room began to laugh, a sound that made Marcus's skin crawl. "So here is my gift to you, Captain," the Baron declared with theatrical grandeur. "Take my broken daughter as your prize. Perhaps your primitive species can find some use for damaged goods. Consider it compensation for your ship." The laughter grew louder. Some nobles were actually pointing at Zara Lynn, their enjoyment of her humiliation clear. But Marcus noticed that she didn't flinch, didn't show any reaction at all. She had probably endured this kind of treatment for years. "I accept," Marcus said without hesitation. The laughter stopped suddenly. The Baron's 4 eyes widened in surprise. "You accept? Just like that? You don't even want to inspect the merchandise first?" The Baron seemed genuinely confused. "I said I accept," Marcus repeated firmly. "When do we leave?" The Baron's surprise quickly turned to cruel amusement. "Oh, this is even better than I hoped. The human thinks he's getting something valuable. Guards, release him and prepare transport to the nearest neutral station. I want this documented. Every moment of his inevitable realization of what a burden he has taken on." As the chains were removed from Marcus's wrists, he walked over to Zara Lynn's wheelchair. Up close he could see that her eyes held a sharp intelligence that reminded him of the best tactical officers he had served with. "Captain Marcus Chen," he said, offering his hand. She looked at his outstretched hand for a long moment before taking it. "Zara Lynn Vexithari." though I suppose that name won't mean much where we're going. A name is what you make it, Marcus replied. As they prepared to leave the throne room, Zara Lynn spoke quietly so only Marcus could hear. My father expects you to abandon me within a week. He's having everything recorded to use as propaganda against your species in the Galactic courts. He wants to prove that even humans, supposedly the most accepting species in the galaxy, will eventually discard the broken and unwanted. Marcus helped position her wheelchair as they moved toward the exit. Then I guess we'll have to prove him wrong. Why? She asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. Why take on someone else's burden? Marcus paused at the threshold of the throne room and looked back at the Baron, who was already talking animatedly with his nobles about the entertainment they would have watching this unfold. Because I don't see a burden, Marcus said quietly. I see someone who survived years in this place with her spirit intact. That takes more strength than most people ever discover they have. As they left the palace, the Baron's laughter followed them through the corridors. He was already planning the humiliation he would broadcast across the galaxy when the human inevitably abandoned his prize. But Baron Vexthari had made one crucial error in his understanding of humans. He assumed that Marcus would see Zara Lynn the same way Zephyrian society did, as broken, as less than whole, as worthless. He had no idea that humans had a long history of proving that the greatest strength often comes from the most unexpected places. The neutral trade station Crossroads was a massive structure, floating between 3 different star systems, a place where all species could conduct business without the interference of any government. It was also the perfect place for outcasts and exiles to disappear. Marcus had used his savings to rent a small workshop in the station's industrial sector. The space was cramped and poorly ventilated, with exposed pipes running along the ceiling and the constant hum of the station's machinery vibrating through the walls. But it had potential. Zara Lynn had been quiet during the 3-day journey from her father's world, spending most of her time staring out the viewports or reading data tablets. Marcus had expected awkwardness, but she had adapted to their situation, with the same dignity she had shown in the throne room. This is it, Marcus announced as they entered the workshop. Home sweet home. Zara Lynn maneuvered her wheelchair through the narrow doorway and looked around the space with a critical eye. The ceiling height is good. The floor is level. Power grid seems adequate. She paused. What exactly do you plan to do here? Marcus was already pulling equipment from storage containers. I'm an engineer. You're obviously intelligent. Your father mentioned you were brilliant before the accident. Between the two of us, I figure we can build something useful. Build what? Marcus stopped and turned to face her. I've been thinking about that since we left your world. In human history, our greatest innovations often came from necessity. When people face challenges, they find new ways to overcome them. Zara Lynn raised an eyebrow. You want to build something to fix me? How charmingly human. No, Marcus said firmly. I want to build something that gives you more options. There's a difference. Over the next few days, Marcus threw himself into understanding Zephyrian physiology and the specific nature of Zara Lynn's injury. The station had a surprisingly good medical database, and he spent hours studying anatomy charts and nerve mapping, diagrams. Zara Lynn watched him work with growing interest. You realize my spine was completely severed? Their best doctors said the damage was irreversible. Their best doctors were probably looking for a way to put you back exactly the way you were before, Marcus replied, not looking up from his sketches. I'm not interested in fixing you. I'm interested in giving you new capabilities. Such as? Marcus finally looked up, excitement in his eyes. What if being in a wheelchair wasn't a limitation? What if it was just a different way of moving? He showed her his preliminary designs. Instead of a traditional wheelchair, he envisioned something that looked more like a spider's body. Multiple legs that could extend and retract, allowing movement across walls and ceilings. Enhanced arm supports that would amplify her natural strength. The Zephyrians think in terms of how you were before, Marcus explained. But humans, we adapt. We find new ways to do things. Sometimes those new ways are better than the old ones. Zara Lynn studied the designs carefully. This would make me look even more different, more alien to my own people. Does that matter? You're already exiled. Why not embrace what makes you unique? For the first time since leaving her world, Zara Lynn smiled. My father always said I was too curious. For my own good. Show me how to build this. The next weeks flew by in a blur of activity. Marcus had expected to do most of the work himself, but Zara Lynn proved to be not just intelligent but practical. Her knowledge of Zephyrian technology combined with his engineering background created something neither could have built alone. The new mobility device took shape slowly. It wasn't pretty. They were working with salvaged parts and basic materials, but it was functional. 8 articulated legs extended from a harness that supported Zara Lynn's torso, each leg equipped with gripping pads that could adhere to almost any surface. Try it, Marcus said, standing back as Zara Lynn transferred from her wheelchair into the device. The first attempts were clumsy. The legs moved independently of each other, and Zara Lynn nearly crashed into a wall twice. But gradually she began to understand the rhythm of it. Then something clicked. Suddenly she was flowing across the floor with fluid grace, the 8 legs moving in perfect coordination. She approached a wall and without hesitation, continued right up it, climbing to the ceiling as naturally as walking across a room. How does it feel? Marcus called up to her. Zara Lynn was hanging upside down from the ceiling, her face lit up with pure joy, like flying. Word of their work began to spread through the station's underground networks. Other beings with disabilities started showing up at their workshop door. First came a Corinthian warrior who had lost his right arm in battle and had been cast out by his clan. Then a blind ethereal navigator whose people believed blindness was a curse. Marcus and Zara Lynn didn't turn anyone away. Each new arrival brought new challenges and new solutions. The workshop became a hive of activity, with beings of different species working together on projects that their own worlds had deemed impossible. The blind ethereal navigator helped design sonic guidance systems that could map environments through sound. The Corinthian warrior contributed combat techniques that worked with artificial limbs. Each adaptation built on the others, creating a web of innovation, but their activities hadn't gone unnoticed. Marcus found a message waiting for him one morning, a formal communication from Baron Vexithari. He knows, Zara Lynn said, reading over Marcus's shoulder. The message was typically pompous. I trust you are enjoying your gift, Captain Chen. I look forward to receiving documentation of your inevitable failure. My recording devices should provide entertaining footage for the Galactic courts. Recording devices? Marcus asked. Zara Lynn nodded grimly. He would never let us go without surveillance. He wants to document the moment you abandon me, to prove that even humans can't accept the truly broken. Marcus crumpled the message. Then I guess we'd better give him something worth recording. That evening, as the workshop hummed with activity, and beings that had been written off by their societies worked together on impossible projects, Marcus realized something had changed. This wasn't about proving the Baron wrong anymore. This was about proving that being different wasn't a weakness. To overcome, it was a strength to embrace. 3 months had passed since Marcus and Zara Lynn had started their workshop, and the small space was now bursting with activity. What had begun as a simple engineering project had grown into something much larger. Word traveled fast through the hidden networks that connected outcasts across the galaxy, and beings with disabilities were arriving from dozens of different worlds. The latest arrival was Kethvar, a young crystalline engineer whose hearing had been damaged in a mining accident. His people, who communicated through harmonic vibrations, had declared him dead to society. He sat at one of the workbenches, tears streaming down his translucent face as he held the vibration gloves Marcus and Zara Lynn had designed for him. I can feel the harmonics again, he said through the station's translation system. For the first time in 2 years, I can hear my people's songs. Zara Lynn smiled as she moved past him on her improved mobility device. The new version Marcus had built for her was sleeker, more refined. She could now move between floor, walls, and ceiling as easily as most beings walked, and her speed had increased dramatically. "That's what we do here," she said. "We don't fix what's broken. We find new ways to make it work." The workshop had expanded to fill 3 adjoining spaces. One room was dedicated to design and testing, another to manufacturing, and the third served as living quarters for those who had nowhere else to go. Marcus had worried about the cost, but donations kept coming in from grateful families and even from some progressive governments who had heard about their work. Dr. Yenna, an elderly Altarian medical researcher who had lost her legs to a degenerative disease, rolled up to Marcus in her custom mobility chair. "Captain, we have a problem." Marcus looked up from the communication device he was calibrating for a mute Vorthon child. "What kind of problem?" "3 of our people went missing yesterday. They were on their way here from the docking bay, and they never arrived." Before Marcus could respond, an alarm rang through the workshop. Everyone froze as the main screens activated, showing a face they all recognized. Baron Vexithari. "Greetings, Captain Chen," the Baron's voice filled the room. "I trust my daughter is still providing adequate entertainment for you and your collection of broken toys." Zara Lynn moved swiftly up the wall to get a better view of the screen, her face hard. "Father." "Ah, there you are, my dear. Still playing with your human pet, I see. How long before he grows tired of your limitations and abandons? You like the worthless creature you are?" Marcus stepped forward. "What do you want, Baron?" Direct as always. "I want my property back, Captain. You see, I've received reports of some very interesting activities happening at your little workshop. My daughter teaching combat tactics, building weapons. This was not part of our agreement." "There was no agreement," Marcus said firmly. "You gave her to me, remember? Your exact words were, 'Take my broken daughter as your prize.'" The Baron's expression darkened. "I gave you a burden, not a weapon, and I certainly didn't give you permission to collect other rejects from across the galaxy. Do you know that some of these creatures are citizens of worlds allied with the Zephyrian Empire?" Zara Lynn dropped down from the ceiling, landing gracefully beside Marcus. "So that's what this is about. You're afraid." "Afraid? Of what?" "Of what we're proving. That the people you throw away might be more valuable than the ones you keep." The Baron's 4 hands clenched into fists. "You will return to your world, daughter, and you will bring your human with you. We have much to discuss about your future." "I don't think so," Marcus said. "Then perhaps you'll reconsider when you see what I have." The Baron gestured, and the screen split, to show 3 beings chained in a dark cell, the missing workshop members. A collective gasp went through the room. One of the prisoners was Jorak, a 1-armed Helian who had been working on a new type of prosthetic. Another was Sela, a partially blind Nexan who had been developing enhanced vision systems. "They will be returned unharmed when you and my daughter arrive on Zephyr Prime. You have 48 hours. The screen went dark. Silence filled the workshop for long moments. Then voices erupted from all directions. "We have to save them. It's a trap. He can't just take our people. We should contact the authorities." Zara Lynn held up her hand, and gradually the voices died down. "This is my fault. My father is using them to get to me. I should go." "No," Marcus said immediately. "He wants both of us. And even if we go, there's no guarantee he'll release them." Dr. Yenna rolled forward. "What are our options?" Marcus looked around the room at the assembled beings. Each one had been thrown away by their society, declared worthless or worse. But as he looked at them now, he saw engineers, fighters, thinkers, and survivors. He saw people who had learned to adapt and overcome. "We get them back ourselves," he said. Kethavar looked up from his workstation. "How?" "The Baron has a private army. We're engineers and refugees, not soldiers." Zara Lynn smiled, and there was something dangerous in that smile. "Actually, some of us are soldiers. Jorak was a warrior before his injury. Tesani was a commando. And She paused. "I was trained in Zephyrian military tactics from childhood. I know every strategy my father's generals learned. But we don't have ships," someone called out. "We don't have weapons." Marcus grinned. We don't need traditional ships or weapons. We have something better. We have adaptability. Over the next 12 hours, the workshop transformed into a war room. Zara Lynn used her knowledge of Zephyrian military protocols to plan their approach. Marcus designed modification kits that would turn their mobility aids into assault equipment. The blind ethereal navigator mapped the prison facility using long-range sensors. The plan was audacious and probably insane. They would convert the workshop's shipping containers into impromptu attack craft. Each would be piloted by someone whose disability had trained them to think differently about movement and space. The one-armed pilots would use neural interfaces. The blind navigators would rely on instruments their sighted counterparts couldn't even understand. "You realize this is suicide," Dr. Yenna said as they made final preparations. "Maybe," Marcus admitted. "But these are our people, and more than that, this is our chance to prove something." "Prove what?" Zara Lynn, suspended from the ceiling as she worked on weapon systems, answered. "That the rejected and the broken can be stronger than those who cast them out." As their improvised fleet prepared to launch, Marcus felt a strange sense of peace. Win or lose, they weren't going to abandon their own. That's what separated them from the societies that had thrown them away. Baron Vexthari had made one crucial error. He assumed that the disabled were weak because they were different. He had never considered that being forced to adapt and overcome might actually make them stronger. He was about to learn the difference. The Baron wanted to prove that even humans would abandon the broken. Instead, he was about to discover that the broken, when they stood together, were unbreakable. The improvised fleet launched from Crossroads Station in the dead of night, when traffic was lightest and sensor sweeps were minimal. 5 converted shipping containers, each modified with engines, life support, and weapon systems that would have been impossible for any traditional military to imagine. Marcus piloted the lead container alongside Zara Lynn, who had positioned herself in a specially designed command harness that let her use her enhanced mobility system even in zero gravity. Through the viewports, he could see the other containers keeping formation, each one carrying a team of beings that the galaxy had written off as worthless. "Approaching the asteroid field," announced Nyx, their Helian pilot whose prosthetic arms could interface directly with the ship's controls through neural links. He had lost both arms in a plasma forge accident, but his replacement limbs could process flight data faster than any organic nervous system. "Take us through the mining tunnels," Zara Lynn instructed. "My father would never expect an attack from that direction." The Baron's prison facility was built inside a hollowed-out asteroid, hidden in a field of mining operations that served as both camouflage and early warning system. But Zara Lynn knew from her childhood that the old mining tunnels connected to the prison's lower levels, a detail that never appeared on official schematics. Senya, a Vorthon, whose legs had been amputated after a terrorist bombing, maneuvered their container through the narrow tunnel system with impossible precision. Her biomechanical legs, designed for delicate work rather than walking, gave her fingertip control over the ship's thrusters. "Guard post ahead," whispered Kayla, an ethereal whose blindness had heightened her other senses beyond normal limits. She could detect metal stress and electromagnetic signatures through the ship's hull. 2 sentries, standard Zephyrian energy weapons. Marcus checked his equipment one more time. "Everyone remember the plan. We're not here to fight a war. We're here to get our people and get out." "The Baron will make sure it's not that simple," Zara Lynn said. "He wants a spectacle. He'll use our rescue attempt as proof that we're dangerous." They breached the prison facility through a maintenance airlock that the Baron's sensors couldn't detect. The team moved through the service corridors like ghosts. Beings who had learned to navigate a hostile galaxy by being invisible now used those same skills for infiltration. Thomas, a human soldier who had lost his hearing in an explosion, communicated through hand signals with perfect precision. His enhanced visual implants could see heat signatures through walls, mapping guard patrols in real time. The prison cells were in the facility's center, surrounded by multiple security layers, but the designers had made their security with normal beings in mind. They had never imagined attackers who could crawl through ventilation systems like spiders, or who could sense electronic locks through touch alone. Zaralyn scaled the walls to the main security console while Marcus and the others created distractions. Her mobility system's legs moved with mechanical precision, each one finding purchase on surfaces that looked completely smooth. "I'm in," she whispered into her communicator. "Jorak and the others are 3 levels down. But Marcus, there are more prisoners than we expected. Dozens of them." Through the security feeds, they could see cells filled with beings from across the galaxy, all of them disabled in some way, all of them captured while trying to find the famous workshop on Crossroads Station. "It's a collection," Marcus realized. "He's been gathering us." Suddenly, lights blazed to life throughout the corridor. Baron Vexthari's voice echoed from speakers throughout the facility. "Welcome to my home, daughter. And congratulations, Captain Chen. You've exceeded even my expectations." Guard squads poured into the corridors from all directions, but these weren't ordinary guards. They moved with enhanced coordination, their weapons charged and ready. "Father," Zaralyn spoke into the air, knowing he was listening. "Let them go, you have what you wanted, I'm here." "Oh, my dear child, this was never about just you. Do you really think I would go to all this trouble for one broken daughter? This is about proving to the galaxy that your kind should never have been allowed to organize." The first wave of guards reached their level. Marcus and his team scattered, using the facility's own design against it. Rena, a crystalline whose arms had been shattered in an industrial accident, used her prosthetic limbs to interface directly with the facility's power grid, causing strategic blackouts. The guards' enhanced coordination meant nothing when they couldn't see their targets. Beings who had spent years navigating in darkness, who had learned to move silently out of necessity, who could fight in ways the guards had never trained for, turned the hunters into the hunted. Zaralyn reached the main cell block and began releasing prisoners. But as she helped them out, she realized the Baron's true plan. Each prisoner was injured during capture. Each one bore fresh wounds that would convince the galaxy that the workshop's people were violent and dangerous. "He's not just trying to stop us," she told Marcus over the communicator. "He's trying to turn public opinion against us, make the galaxy fear us." Marcus understood immediately. If disabled beings organize and fight back, it questions everything. Every society that throws people away, every system that decides who has value. It all becomes uncertain. The battle moved through the prison level by level. The workshop team used every adaptation they'd learned, every modification they'd built, every strategy that came from thinking differently about problems. They fought not like soldiers, but like survivors who had everything to prove. Dr. Yenna, despite her age and mobility limitations, proved to be their tactical coordinator, using her medical knowledge to predict how enhanced guards would move under stress. Kethavar jammed communication frequencies with equipment built into his hearing aids, but the Baron had prepared for this. As they freed the last group of prisoners, a new sound echoed through the facility, the hum of larger engines. "Ships incoming," Nix reported from their container. "Multiple vessels. Looks like the Baron called for backup." Through the facility's viewports, they could see Zephyrian warships taking positions around the asteroid. The Baron's voice returned over the speakers, triumphant. "You see? Even when given every advantage, the broken must resort to violence. You've attacked a peaceful prison facility, endangered innocent guards, and now you've brought war to my doorstep." Zaralyn looked at Marcus as they gathered in the hangar bay with the freed prisoners. Some were too injured to move quickly. Others were weak from captivity. Their improvised escape containers were not designed for combat against military vessels. "This was always where it would end," she said quietly. "My father never intended to let any of us leave." Marcus smiled grimly as he watched their team helping the rescued prisoners aboard the containers. Beings who had been declared worthless by their societies were risking everything for strangers they'd never met. "Maybe that's okay," he said. "Maybe it's time the galaxy saw what happens when you push the unwanted too far." Baron Vexithari wanted to prove that the disabled were dangerous. He was about to discover he was right, but not in the way he had intended. The beings he had gathered, as specimens, were about to show the galaxy what real strength looked like. The escape from the prison facility had become a running battle through space. 5 modified shipping containers, packed with rescued prisoners and wounded fighters, raced through the asteroid field, while Baron Vexithari's warships closed in, from all sides. Marcus gripped the pilot controls as Zaralyn coordinated their defense from her position on the container's ceiling. "Nix, take us deeper into the field. Use the spinning rocks as cover." "Ships this size weren't built for asteroid navigation," Nix replied, his prosthetic arms interfacing directly with the navigation system. "But then again, neither were we." The Baron's voice crackled over the communication channels. "You cannot escape, daughter. Surrender now and I will ensure your human friend dies quickly." "Counteroffer," Zaralyn shot back. "Leave us alone, and I won't tell the galaxy about the secret prison where you collect disabled beings like trophies." A bitter laugh echoed through the speakers. "Tell whoever you like. Who will believe the word of freaks and outcasts?" That's when Dr. Yenna spoke up from the medical bay where she was treating injured prisoners. "Perhaps they'll believe the word of the Galactic News Network." On every screen in the container, a familiar face appeared. Bren Cole, the galaxy's most respected war correspondent. Behind him was clearly the interior of a news ship. "This is Bren Cole, reporting live from the Zephyr system where we have been documenting what appears to be a systematic capture and imprisonment of disabled beings from across the galaxy." Marcus stared at the screen. "How did they—" "I sent a message before we left Crossroads," Dr. Yenna explained calmly. "Some of us are old enough to remember when the galaxy last ignored persecution. The news service has been tracking us since we launched." On screen, the correspondent continued. "The beings we see escaping now appear to be fighting for their freedom against overwhelming odds. Baron Vexithari has refused to respond to our requests for comment about the nature of this prison facility." The Baron's ships hesitated. Marcus realized the implications immediately. He can't just blow us up now, too many people are watching. But the Baron had another plan. More ships emerged from behind the large asteroids. Not military vessels, but civil enforcement craft from a dozen different worlds. "Citizens of the galaxy," the Baron's voice had taken on a formal diplomatic tone. "These criminals have attacked a legal detention center and endangered civilian lives. I call upon all peaceful worlds to assist in their capture." Several of the enforcement ships began moving toward the containers. Marcus felt his heart sink. These weren't the Baron's ships. These were representatives from worlds whose own disabled citizens had fled to the workshop. "They're going to help him," someone whispered. But then something unexpected happened. The lead enforcement ship opened. "Communications." "This is Captain Veltar of the Corinthian Enforcement Corps," a voice announced. "We are here in response to reports that you are holding our citizens against their will." "Excellent," the Baron replied. "These criminals—" "Baron Vexithari," the captain interrupted. "We are not here to assist you. We are here to demand the return of our people who came to the human station seeking medical aid and never returned." One by one, other enforcement ships joined in. An ethereal captain, a crystalline commander, even a Zephyrian Navy officer whose voice was tight with barely controlled anger. "This is Admiral Kexishan of the Third Fleet," the Zephyrian officer announced. "Baron, you will stand down immediately and allow these beings to return to their homes." "This is treason," the Baron raged. "These creatures are criminals. They attacked. We have footage of your detention center." Admiral Kexishan replied, coldly. "Beings held without trial, without charges, many showing signs of abuse. Unless you want to explain this to the Imperial Court, you will withdraw your ships now." Marcus felt something he hadn't expected: hope. Around him, the rescued prisoners were watching the screens with amazement. Beings they thought their worlds had abandoned were fighting for their return. But Baron Vexithari wasn't finished. "If you won't see reason, then I'll show the galaxy what these freaks are truly capable of." The Baron's personal flagship moved forward, weapons charging. But instead of targeting the containers, it aimed at one of the enforcement ships. "My own admiral betrays me for broken creatures," the Baron snarled. "Let's see how loyal you remain after I—" He never finished the sentence. Zaralyn had been moving through the container systems while everyone else watched the screens. Now she spoke into the communication system with calm authority. Father, this is your daughter. Look at your sensor readings. On the Baron's ship, alarms began sounding. The containers had moved into formation around his flagship, but they weren't positioning for attack. They were positioning for something else entirely. You see, Zaralyn explained, while you were focused on proving we were dangerous, we were proving we were useful. Every enforcement ship here came because their worlds need their citizens back. Scientists, engineers, artists, warriors, all. The people you thought were worthless. Marcus understood her plan. You're not trying to defeat him. You're showing the galaxy who he really is. The Baron's weapons powered down as he realized his position. Surrounded by enforcement ships from across the galaxy, watched by news crews with his own admiral against him, he had no moves left. This isn't over, he transmitted on an open channel. Yes, it is, Zaralyn replied. You wanted to prove that. The disabled shouldn't be allowed to organize. Instead, you've proven that when we do organize, we become something greater than the sum of our parts. The enforcement ships formed a protective formation around the containers as they headed back toward Crossroads Station. The Baron's ships could only watch as their prisoners escaped, now under the protection of multiple galactic governments. But as they traveled, Marcus felt a weight settling on him. This is bigger than just us now, he said to Zaralyn. She nodded, suspended from the ceiling as she monitored communications from around the galaxy. Disabled beings on dozens of worlds are asking their governments why their peers were imprisoned. Some are demanding answers. Others are demanding the right to leave if they choose. And your father? He'll face imperial justice, but more importantly, he's lost his power. The galaxy has seen what happens when the unwanted stand together. As Crossroads Station came into view, Marcus realized their small rebellion had become something much larger. The workshop that had started as refuge for two individuals had grown into a symbol of hope for millions. The Baron had tried to prove that the disabled were dangerous. In a way, he had been right. They were dangerous to any system that judged beings by their limitations rather than their potential. And now the galaxy would never be the same. 1 year later, Marcus stood at the observation deck of the new Crossroads Academy, watching construction crews put the finishing touches on the latest expansion. What had started as a small workshop was now a sprawling complex that housed the galaxy's first institute for adaptive innovation. Impressive, isn't it? Zaralyn's voice came from above him. She descended from the ceiling with the fluid grace that had become her trademark, landing softly beside him. Sometimes I still can't believe it's real, Marcus admitted. A year ago, we were refugees in a cramped workshop. The changes had been remarkable. The Baron's trial had lasted 6 months and had become the most watched legal proceeding in galactic history. The evidence presented, recordings of the prison facility, testimonies from dozens of captured beings, documentation of systematic abuse, had sent shockwaves through civilized space. Baron Vexithari had been stripped of all titles and exiled to a remote mining colony. But more importantly, his actions had forced every government in the galaxy to examine how they treated their own disabled citizens. The crystalline delegation from Kepler Station just arrived, Zaralyn reported. They want to establish a sister campus there. Marcus nodded. Similar campuses were being built on 17 worlds now, each one adapted to local needs and species requirements. The ethereal campus specialized in sensory adaptation technologies. The Corinthian facility focused on combat applications for injured warriors. Dr. Yenna approached them in her latest mobility chair, a sleek design that could hover, roll, or even climb stairs. Marcus, the Galactic Council representatives are here for the dedication ceremony. The dedication ceremony. Marcus had tried to avoid the spotlight, but Zaralyn insisted that their story needed to be told properly. Today, Crossroads Academy would officially become a recognized institution of higher learning, with full diplomatic status and protection under galactic law. How many beings are enrolled now? Marcus asked as they made their way to the main auditorium. 12,000, across all campuses, Dr. Yenna replied, and we have waiting lists on every world. The auditorium was packed with beings from across the galaxy. Marcus recognized many faces: former patients who had become engineers, warriors who had found new purpose, artists whose disabilities had become part of their unique vision. Among the dignitaries, Marcus spotted Admiral Kexashan, now head of the Zephyrian Navy's new Adaptive Defense Corps. The admiral had made sure every one of the Baron's co-conspirators faced justice. "Ready?" Zaralyn asked as they prepared to take the stage. "As ready as I'll ever be for this kind of attention." The ceremony began with presentations from government leaders, medical researchers, and military commanders, all talking about the innovations that had emerged from the academy. Prosthetics that enhanced rather than just replaced. Ship designs that incorporated different types of perception. Combat techniques that turned physical limitations into tactical advantages. But the real impact wasn't in the technology. It was in the change of thinking. When Marcus and Zaralyn finally took the stage, the auditorium fell silent. "A year ago," Marcus began, "we were told that some beings are broken, worthless burdens on society. Today, we know better." Zaralyn moved to the center of the stage, her mobility system allowing her to address the entire audience with ease. "My father gave me to Captain Chen as a joke. He thought he was giving away damaged goods. Instead, he gave me a chance to discover what I could become." She gestured to the audience. "Everyone here has that same story. We were told we were less than whole. Society wrote us off. And in doing so, society wasted one of its greatest resources." Marcus continued. "We've learned that adaptation isn't just about overcoming challenges. It's about finding new ways to excel. Every being who has been forced to think differently, to find alternative solutions, to push beyond conventional limitations. They bring perspectives that society needs." The applause was thunderous, but Marcus wasn't finished. "The real lesson here isn't about disability or ability. It's about potential. Every being, regardless of their physical condition, has something unique to offer. The only disability is closed minds that can't see that potential." After the ceremony, as the crowds began to disperse, Marcus and Zaralyn found themselves alone on the observation deck again. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we'd taken a different path?" Zaralyn asked. Marcus considered the question. "You mean if I'd left you on some backwater planet like your father expected? Or if we'd just built a quiet life somewhere, away from all this attention?" Marcus looked out at the bustling academy, at beings from dozens of species working together, learning together, building the future together. "I think we'd have been fine," he said. "Happy even, but millions of others wouldn't have had a chance. Every being out there who's been told they're worthless, who's been given up on, they deserve what we've built here." Zaralyn smiled. "My father thought he was humiliating us. Instead, he gave us the chance to change the galaxy. A year ago, Baron Vexthari had given his disabled daughter to a human soldier as a cruel joke. He had expected abandonment, failure, and humiliation. Instead, he had unknowingly planted the seeds of a revolution. The galaxy was learning that being different wasn't a flaw to be hidden or fixed. It was a strength to be celebrated and cultivated. Disabled beings weren't broken toys to be discarded, but valuable members of society whose unique perspectives could solve problems that conventional thinking couldn't touch. And at the center of it all was the partnership between a human engineer who saw potential where others saw problems, and a Zephyrian woman who had transformed from a symbol of shame into an icon of hope. The Baron's cruel jest had become the galaxy's greatest gift to itself. As the twin suns of the Crossroads system set through the observation deck windows, Marcus and Zaralyn watched students from across the galaxy hurrying to evening classes, research sessions, and social gatherings. The future had never looked brighter or more beautifully diverse. "So," Marcus said with a grin, "what impossible thing should we make possible tomorrow?" Zaralyn's eyes sparkled with the same curiosity that had first caught his attention in that throne room so long ago. "Let's find out."